Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Creepy and Paranormal Show. I hope that you have had a wonderful start to the year and that you ended your year off with a bang and were being super healthy and super safe. So, just off the bat, I want to let you know that if the audio is not 100% perfect today, please forgive me. My daughter has moved my recording microphone, and for some reason, I cannot find it anywhere in the house. So yeah, it's just one of those things recording directly today, so hopefully the audio isn't too bad. But speaking about recording today, today's episode is proudly brought to you by Invoice Cloud and Homeground Coffee. We will be talking about them a little bit later in the show. But today's episode, it is a mystery, murder, crime. It's a fascinating story that was brought to my attention by one of my good friends, Sydney, who told me about the story, and it immediately piqued my interest, and it's currently an ongoing investigation, but there has been some updates recently, so I'm glad I delayed recording the episode a little bit because now we have some more information. But yeah, before we get into the show, obviously we're going to start it off with the intro, so let's take it away.
But I want to start with that story confirming that Kaylee had a stalker. So take me to that whole situation with the business in town and what you found out.
Yeah, this was interesting, Ashley, and we didn't expect it. We went to this vape shop in downtown Moscow looking for surveillance video. I mean, we've been going all over the place just trying to get any new information. And the manager actually knew Kaylee and Maddie. They had been there 6 or 7 times. And then he had a lot to say about the potential of this stalker. Listen to what he told me.
So Kaylee and Maddie would both come in very happy, very friendly. You know, they always were just such a smile on their face. Just like pretty much you would say they're the light of the world, pretty much. You know, always happy, go lucky. They always came in just chatting. They always came with a group, like I said. They probably, I'd say 4 or 5 girls at most, all the time. They come in together. And I made a joke about it earlier. It was like, hey, coming together and stuff like that. It's nice to see you girls trying to stay safe. One of them more or less openly says, oh yeah, we've had a friend of ours be stalked before, so this is kind of why we all travel in a group like this. And just was
it Kaylee who said that? Do you remember?
No, it was Maddie who actually said that. So Maddie said it, and it was kind of like more mentioning, like motioning to Kaylee too, like who was right next to her. So you could tell that like they obviously all were trying to keep Kaylee safe,
Right, let's get this party started. In the early hours of November 13, 2022, 4 University of Idaho students were fatally stabbed while they slept in an off-campus 3-story rented home in Moscow, Idaho. On December 30th, 2022, a suspect was arrested in Monroe County, Pennsylvania on 4 counts of murder in the first degree as well as felony burglary. Several University of Idaho students lived in a rented off-campus home in the rural college town of Moscow, Idaho. The 3-story home had 6 bedrooms, 2 on each floor. The city had not seen a murder since 2015. 4 University of Idaho students were killed: Ethan Chapin, who was 20 years old, of Conway, Washington; Kaylee Gonzalez, who was 21, of Rathdrum, Idaho; Zaina Knodel, 20 years old, of Avondale, Arizona, and who later moved to Post Falls, Idaho, as well as Madison Mogan, 21, of Coeur d'Idaho of Idaho. Now, Chapin was a freshman and Knodel was a junior, and Gonzalez and Mogan were both seniors. So let's take a little look into the students who were murdered. I might just mention that if I pronounce the names and surnames wrong, please forgive me. That is not one of my strong points, but I don't do it disrespectfully. Let's start off with Ethan Chapin, who was one of the most incredible people you'll ever know, his mother said before his memorial service. Chapin, who was from Conway, Washington, was among 4 Idaho students stabbed to death in an off-campus house in the early hours of November 13. Chapin didn't live in the house, but was sleeping over with his girlfriend, 20-year-old Zaina Knodel, who was among the victims. Now, Chapin was a triplet and was born right before his sister and brother, who also attended the University of Idaho. We're here to honor the life and legacy of our son and brother, his mother Stacy Chapin told reporters before Monday's memorial service, with her family who were standing right by her side for support. At Idaho, Ethan Chapin was in the Sigma Chi fraternity and was majoring in recreation, sport and tourism management, the University of President Scott Green said. Now, the 20-year-old lived his best life at college. His obituary also stated he loved the social life, intramurals, and tolerated the academics. He loved sports, from golf to basketball, to surfing, to pickleball, his family even mentioned. He laughed continuously. He smiled when he woke up and was still smiling when he went to bed, his obituary also stated. He was kind to all and a friend to all. Everybody has their own morning routines, but on the top of my list is coffee. Strong, hot black coffee. I physically can't start the day without a cup. However, sometimes life gets in the way and you're forced to buy a cup of coffee while on the road. And if you're like me, you struggle to find one that tastes good and is affordable. Well, now there is a one-stop solution for you. Homeground Coffee. The name is brilliant and so is the service. Situated at Benoni Northern Sports Ground, it's a nice central point for your morning commute. And why not get a delicious muffin or pie to go along with it? Homeground Coffee is the perfect go-to, and I advise you strongly to give them a try. When you do, let them know that I sent you. Find them on Facebook at Homeground Coffee as well as Instagram. That's Homeground Coffee, HOMEGROUND. Next up, we are going to take a look at Kaylee Gonzalez, and she would actually beg her friends to walk closely behind her at all times after becoming terrified of a stalker who would follow her around town, which was mentioned to everyone by a local shop owner. There had been several reports that Gonzalez was scared of a stalker in the weeks leading up to the quadruple homicide, something Moscow police had denied knowledge of. But a vape shop manager now claims he discussed Gonzalez's stalker with her and Morgan 3 weeks before they were slain in their beds. He told the news station, Kaylee and Maddie would both come in here. They always had a smile on their face. They were the light of the world. They always came in with a group of 4 or 5 girls at most. All the time, they would come in together. I made a joke about them coming in together, that it was nice to see that they were trying to stay safe. Maddie then said, we had a friend of ours be stalked, which is why we travel in a group. She was motioning to Kaylee as she said it. It seemed as though they were all trying to keep Kaylee safe and be there for her as friends. This was 3 weeks before the murders would take place. Gonzalez reportedly told him that the stalker would follow her at night when she was going to or from bars, either by the campus or down on Main Street. Her family have said they were not aware of any stalker, despite the manager claiming it was something she had tons of issues with. She would always have to have someone who was constantly walking behind her in order to keep her feeling safe. Now, the boyfriend of slain University of Idaho student Madison Maddie Morgan has finally spoken out publicly for the first time. Jake Schriger, a fellow student at the university who had been dating Morgan for nearly a year, spoke about his 21-year-old girlfriend at a vigil in Post Falls, Idaho on the 2nd of December. None of these people deserved this, Mr. Schriger said in front of the families of the victims in Knodel's hometown. She was the first person I talked to every morning and the last person I talked to before bed, he said, adding she was the person that I loved most. He talked about their first date at the breakfast club in Moscow and how their friendship developed over the last 2 years. Maddie was my best friend, Mr. Schriger said. I was lucky enough to be able to explore life with Maddie for about 2 years. Earlier, his mother Stacy Schriger described the young couple as being like peanut butter and jelly, who often posted loving photos of each other on their social media accounts. She said her son's world had been turned upside down following Mogan's death. Scott Laramie, the stepfather of Mogan, whom she called Dad, said losing his only child was the hardest thing in the world. It's still hard to believe sometimes. We get up in the morning and it's like, nah, this isn't happening. And then it kicks in, Mr. Laramie told Fox News on Monday. The emotional father said, "We love her and we miss her. And it's the hardest thing in the world to try and figure out how to live a world without her. It's the hardest thing to imagine right now." Mr. Laramie said his daughter's boyfriend is having a tough time dealing with the loss and is all broken up. He is having a hard time dealing with this too, the father said, adding that he had been in touch with Mr. Schriger. Those two, they were really good together. They really clicked. Meanwhile, Kaylee Gonzalez's father, Steve Gonzalez, said the killer chose to go up to the 3rd floor where his daughter and her best friend Mogan were sleeping, a route that took the perpetrator out of the way of the entry point to the home. Now let's take a look at the events that led up to the fateful murders. In the early morning hours of November 13, 2022, between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., 4 University of Idaho college students were stabbed to death in a shared rental home close to the campus in which 3 of them resided. The 3 female victims, Madison, Kaylee, and Zaina, lived at the house, while the 4th victim, Ethan, was Conodle's boyfriend who was sleeping over on the night of the attacks. 2 other female roommates also lived at the house. They slept through the attacks and were not injured at all. Earlier on the evening of November 12th, 2 of the 4 victims, Chapin and Conodle, were at an on-campus party at the nearby Sigma Chi fraternity from about 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. They returned home at 1:45 a.m. That evening, the other 2 victims, best friends Mogan and Gonzalez, had gone to a downtown sports bar at about 10 p.m., from which they departed at 1:30 a.m. A live stream video from Twitch from the Grub Truck, a food truck 4 blocks south at Friendship Square, showed Mogan and Gonzalez at about 1:41 a.m. chatting and smiling, getting their food 10 minutes later, and leaving to take what the police initially said was an Uber ride home, a trip of about 1 mile, which for us South Africans is 1.6 kilometers. The police later rephrased their statement to say the ride was provided by a private party, arriving home at 1:56 a.m. All 4 students were home by 1:56 a.m. 7 uncompleted phone calls were made from the phone of Gonzalez to her former longtime boyfriend, a fellow student, from 2:26 to 2:52 a.m. Mogan also called the boyfriend 3 times with similar results from 2:44 to 2:52 a.m. These calls were investigated, with the police concluding they did not believe he was involved in the crime. Today's sponsor is called Invoice Cloud. Now, this is really awesome if you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, or even a freelancer. You know how difficult it is to manage and then create those invoices for your customers. But with Invoice Cloud, you have everything you need to create simple, professional estimates on the fly. It's easy to use and understand, and getting rid of all the nonsense so you can have more time to do what matters most, which is to grow your business. Invoice Cloud allows you to add your company details, logo, customer information, as well as products, making it a breeze to send estimates to your clients anytime, anywhere. Now, if you want to start your free 7-day trial and get invoicing in just under 5 minutes, all you need to do is head over to invoicecloud.co.za and boom, you are sorted. That's invoicecloud.co.za. Now, the 2 surviving roommates had returned home by 1 a.m. and were in their beds on the ground floor of the home at the time of the murders. They were not attacked or held hostage and did not awaken until later that morning. The 4 victims were stabbed to death on the 2nd and 3rd floors in the home while they had been sleeping. The victims were not gagged or restrained, and the walls at the scene were splattered with blood. No calls to 911 were made until 11:58 a.m., many hours after the early morning killings. At that time, a call was made from inside the residence from the cell phone of one of the surviving students who lived at the residence, asking for aid for an unconscious person. When police arrived, the door to the home was open. There was no sign of forced entry or damage inside the home, and nothing appeared to be missing. The 2 surviving roommates were in the residence when the police arrived, as were other friends of the victims. The surviving roommates had called friends over to the home because they believed one of the 2nd floor victims was unconscious and was just not waking up. The identity of the 911 caller was not released, and the person was not considered a suspect. All 4 victims were pronounced deceased at 12 noon. That night, officers came upon Gonzalez's dog, which she shared with her ex-boyfriend, alive and unharmed at the house. It was ultimately handed over to what police said was a responsible party. On the evening of November 13, the university cancelled classes for November 14. It also scheduled a candlelit vigil to be held on the UI Administration Building lawn on the evening of November 16, then postponed it to 2 weeks. From the day of the killings, investigators initially said there was no risk to the community. 3 days later, however, Moscow Police Chief James Fry said, "We cannot say that there is no threat to the community." Fall break was scheduled to begin after November 18, with classes resuming on November 28. Many students and other Moscow residents, not trusting the initial assurances of the police and fearing for their own safety, began an early Thanksgiving holiday exodus from the area, while others who stayed were anxious and cautious, and a number of professors cancelled their classes. Because of weather concerns, the candlelit vigil was moved indoors to the Kibble Dome and held on the evening of November 30. The investigation of the stabbings is being conducted by the Moscow Police Department, supported by the Idaho State Police and the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. In all, almost 130 members of law enforcement from 3 different agencies began working on the case. And on November 19, police requested the public provide any video of the house that had been recorded on the night of the killings. A phone tip line and email were created for students and others to submit potential evidence to officials. And by December 5th, it was reported that there had been more than 2,600 email tips, 2,700 phone calls, and 1,000 digital media submissions from the public to these tip lines. And by December 24, the investigative team reported having received at least 15,000 tips regarding the case. The Monroe County coroner conducted autopsies on the 4 victims on November 17. She said they all appeared to have been stabbed multiple times, with fatal wounds in their chest and upper body, with a large knife. If not the same knife, very similar ones. At least one victim with what were apparently defensive stab wounds on her hands, and possibly more appear to have tried to fend off the attacker. And the victims may have been attacked while sleeping in their beds. None showed signs of sexual assault, and toxicology reports are pending. All 4 deaths were deemed homicide by stabbing. They were not tied and gagged. No weapon has been recovered, though the police believe the killer or killers used a fixed blade knife. The police ruled out a fellow student wearing a white hoodie seen in the video footage speaking to Morgan and Gonzalez by the food truck, the person who drove Morgan and Gonzalez home, the 2 surviving roommates who were home during the killings, and Gonzalez's former long-term boyfriend whom she and Morgan had called a total of 10 times that night. The authorities left open the possibility that there could be more than one perpetrator. In a November 23 press conference, the police chief said that the authorities had received a number of tips, including that Gonzalez allegedly had a stalker, but were unable to verify the claim or identify any such individual at the time. After receiving hundreds of tips from the public, on December 15th, Police announced they were searching records of approximately 22,000 Hyundai Elantras of models 2011 to 2013, and Elantra had been an image by a camera in the area of the murders around the time when they took place. Investigators traced ownership of this vehicle to a local individual who drove the car with his father to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Investigators had also obtained a sample of DNA from the crime scene that did not belong to any of the victims. Using a public genealogy database, authorities identified a partial match to an individual with a familiar connection to the suspect. Just want to take a side note there quickly with regards to the genealogy database. Now, I know some people are very conflicted about using websites. I think it's like, what do they call it, 23andMe and stuff like that, where you submit your DNA via saliva, whatever the case may be, and they trace your ancestral roots, your family tree and all that kind of stuff. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that kind of stuff, but a lot of murders and unsolved crimes have been closed and completed because of these kind of websites / systems. So it definitely serves its purpose. I'm very interested in submitting mine to find out more about my background, but at the same time I'm also like, the conspiracy theorist in me is like, I don't want to give the government any more of my details. But then I'm like, they probably already got it. I've had multiple operations in my life, dental records, all that kind of stuff. So as well as your digital footprint, are you really hiding anything from them? I really doubt it. But anyways, let's move on. Brian Christopher Kohberger was arrested in Pennsylvania on a fugitive from justice warrant. Pennsylvania State Police said in a statement calling Kohberger a suspect in the murders. He faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and a count of felony burglary, Idaho officials announced on the Friday. The 28-year-old was arraigned in Pennsylvania in front of a district judge, where bail was denied, and remanded to Monroe County Correctional Facility, where he is awaiting extradition to Idaho, state police said in a news release. A law enforcement source told CBS News that Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. At the time of his arrest, Kohberger was listed as a PhD in criminology student and teaching assistant at Washington State's University Pullman campus, which is a short drive from Moscow, Idaho. He completed a bachelor's degree at DeSales University in 2020, then did further graduate studies at the university until June 2022, a statement from DeSales confirmed. The Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology at Washington State University responded to the news of Kohberger's arrest in a separate statement. This statement appeared on the department's homepage on the university's website. It was dated 31st of December, one day after the arrest in Pennsylvania. The Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology at Washington State University is aggrieved by the alleged horrendous acts of one of its graduate students, the statement read. We are relieved that justice will be carried out. Our hearts are with the victims' families. Now, Kohberger is willing to waive his extradition hearing, his attorney told CBS News the weekend after his arrest. He will still face a judge at an upcoming hearing on court on January 3rd to sign off on paperwork, Monroe County Chief Public Defender Jason Labar said. Labar, who is only representing Kohberger for the extradition, shared a statement on behalf of the suspect's parents and 2 sisters on New Year's Day. Acknowledging the arrest and the charges against him, Kohberger's family said they will continue to let the legal process unfold and confirmed that they have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence. They also recognize the family's suffering loss. First and foremost, we care deeply for the 4 families who have lost their precious children. There are no words that can adequately express the sadness we feel, and we pray each day for them, Kohberger's family said in a statement, which was obtained by CBS News. We will continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family, we will love and support our son and brother, the suspect's family said. We have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence rather than judge unknown facts and make erroneous assumptions. We respect privacy in this matter as our family and the families suffering loss can move forward through the legal process. And that is where the case stands at the moment, folks. So there's no information as to why he potentially did it or how he is connected to the 4 students. All we know right now is that he's undergoing in more investigation from the police, so there's going to be a lengthy process. But what we're going to do is continue to follow this case closely, and if there are any more updates or breaking news, I will definitely add a link into this video's description, as well as possibly posting another video on it. But that is where we currently stand with this. It's, like I say, it's quite a mystery. Up until the point of us not knowing if there was any suspects arrested, it was really a weird, creepy mystery. But now we have a suspect, and we need to find out more information as to why he possibly did it, if he did do it. There's always the possibility that it wasn't him, and there's another murderer out there. But yeah, that's where we stand at the moment, folks. Nice story to start off the year with in terms of exciting. Not so nice for the families all involved. I mean, obviously the 4 teens that were murdered, their families are suffering, but at least we not forget the Coburg family as well. I mean, if this guy is guilty of murder of the 4 teens, his family are going to suffer as well. They're going to potentially lose their child to the criminal system. And yeah, it's just really sad all around. So like I say, let's follow this case closely, and I hope you are all having a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos so that we can continue to grow the channel, and potentially have to buy a new microphone because mine has gone MIA. Anyways, like I always say at the end of my show, when you go to sleep tonight, don't forget to look under your bed.